Here is what everyone knows about the man in this photograph. Henry Ford invented the automobile. Henry Ford invented the assembly line. And Henry Ford, out of generosity, doubled his workers' pay so they could afford his cars. Now here is the problem. The first sentence is false. The second sentence is false. And the third is at best half true. What Ford actually did was stranger, colder, and far more important. He invented the machine that eats time. This is failed farm mechanic built the empire that built the 20th century. Judge the empire by one number first, 15 million. That is how many Model Ts rolled out of Ford's factories between 1908 and 1927, a single, nearly unchanged design. At the peak, more than half the cars in America were Model Ts, and for a stretch in the early 20s, roughly half the cars on Earth. No product before it, and almost none since, has owned its world so completely. And the whole thing was built on an idea Ford never patented, because it was not a machine, it was a method. Like every empire this channel takes apart, it starts small. A Michigan farm, a boy who hated farming. Act 1, the tinkerer. Henry Ford, born 1863, loathed farm work and loved anything with gears. Neighbors brought him their broken watches. At 16, he walked to Detroit for the machine shops. By 1893, he was chief engineer at the Edison Illuminating Company, keeping the city's lights on by day and building a gasoline buggy in the shed behind his house by night. In 1896, the buggy was finished, the Quadricycle, 4 bicycle wheels and a 2-cylinder engine, and it was wider than the shed door, so he knocked out the wall with an axe and drove into the street. He was 32. It would take him 2 failed companies, the second one threw him out, and later became Cadillac, before the Ford Motor Company finally formed in 1903 with $28,000 from 12 nervous investors. Now clear the myth off the table, because the truth is better than the legend. The automobile was invented by Karl Benz in Germany in 1886, when Ford was 23. The automobile assembly line was already running at Ransom Olds factory in 1901. It built the curved dash Oldsmobile, while the Model T was still 7 years away. Interchangeable parts had been perfected in gun armories decades before that. Even the gasoline engine was Otto's. From 1876, every ingredient of Ford's empire was lying around in plain sight. His genius was not invention, it was the recipe. In 1908, he finally had the car. What he did to it next is the whole empire. Act 2, the machine that eats time. The Model T of 1908 was simple, tough, and fixable by a farmer with a wrench, but it was still built the old way, teams of men assembling a whole car in place. The new idea came from an ugly place, Chicago's meatpacking plants, where carcasses moved past fixed stations on overhead rails, a disassembly line. Ford's engineers flipped it. April 1913, they tested it on one small part, the flywheel magneto, splitting the job into 29 motions. Assembly time collapsed, so they did it to the engine. Then, that autumn, to the entire chassis, 84 steps, a chain dragging the frame past the men. The factory had become a machine whose real product was time. Here is what the chain did. A chassis that had taken 12.5 hours of skilled labor now came together in 93 minutes of choreographed motion. Nobody worked harder, the work itself had been rebuilt. And because time was the biggest cost in a car, the savings went straight into the price tag, which went straight into volume, which paid for more speed. Factory managers from every industry on Earth made pilgrimages to Highland Park to copy it. Most of the modern world, your phone, your furniture, your food still comes down a descendant of that chain. By the mid-20s, the system was producing a finished Model T roughly every 10 seconds of the working day across its lines. Visitors described the factory the way people describe the ocean, something too big and too continuous to quite believe. But standing inside it was a different experience. The line never stopped. The same motion, thousands of times a day, at a pace one worker called being ground down to a nervous stub. The machine that ate time, it turned out, was also eating men's. And the men did the only thing they could. They quit. In 1913, turnover on Ford's lines hit roughly 370%. The company had to hire about 52,000 men that year just to keep 14,000 positions filled. Every departure meant retraining, spoiled parts, a stutter in the flow. The most efficient factory on Earth was hemorrhaging the one part it could not standardize: human beings. That bleeding not kindness is what produced the most famous pay raise in history. On January 5, 1914, Ford summoned reporters and detonated the labor market. The basic wage more than doubled to $5 a day, and the shift dropped from 9 hours to 8. The Wall Street Journal called it an economic crime. Rival manufacturers called it treason. 10,000 men mobbed the gates in the January cold. Turnover collapsed, productivity jumped, and the 8-hour day let the plant run 3 shifts around the clock. Ford had discovered a law empires still run on. Paying people enough to stay is cheaper than replacing them forever, and a workforce that can afford the product is a market you manufactured yourself. The car got cheaper every single year. The empire got bigger, and the bill got stranger. Act 3, the empire and what it cost. The tea remade the country that built it. Farmers ended their isolation. Roads, gas stations, motels, suburbs, and entire geography grew up around a car cheap enough for the people who made it. Ford dealerships reached into towns that had never seen a showroom, and the Tin Lizzie became the first machine millions of families ever owned. Ask who put America on wheels, and there is only one honest answer. And the price kept falling. That was the whole religion. $850 at launch, $550 by 1913, $360 by 1916, and by 1925, a new Model T runabout cost $260, less than 4 months of a Ford worker's own wages. Ford had inverted a century of business logic. Instead of charging what the market would bear, he charged less than it expected and let volume do the conquering. Every price cut was a land grab. By the 20s, Ford wanted no suppliers, no partners, no dependencies at all. The River Rouge plant was the answer, the largest integrated factory on Earth. Ford ore boats docked at one end, finished cars rolled out the other. He owned the iron mines, the coal mines, the forests, the sawmills, the railroad, even rubber plantations in Brazil. By the company's own count, the Rouge could turn raw iron ore into a running automobile in about 28 hours. It was the most self-sufficient industrial empire ever assembled. One man's will, poured in concrete, 1.5 miles long. Step back and the whole empire is one loop running at full speed. Simplify the product to one unchanging spec. Use flow to strip the time out of making it. Push the savings into the price, which floods in new customers. Then feed the profit back into more flow. Around and around for 19 years, each lap making the next one cheaper. It is the same loop that later built Standard Oil's refineries, Toyota, Walmart, and Amazon. Ford just ran it first. Public at scale. Now the bill, because this channel does not do statues. The $5 day came with inspectors. Ford's sociological department visited workers' homes to judge their drinking, their marriages, their savings, before paying the full wage. The line's monotony was so grinding that doctors described a new kind of exhaustion. Ford clung to the T years too long, refused change, until Chevrolet was eating him alive, and had to shut the entire empire for months in 1927 to retool. General Motors took the lead and never truly gave it back. And the darkest stain has nothing to do with cars. Through his newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, Ford spent the 20s publishing vicious anti-Semitic propaganda material he was eventually forced to publicly retract and apologize for in 1927. The empire was real, so was all of it. Which brings us to the most famous sentence he ever wrote, from his 1922 autobiography. Any customer can have a car painted any color that he wants, so long as it is black. Everyone quotes it. Almost nobody knows the twist. For the Model T's first 5 years, you could not buy a black one at all. They came in greens, reds, blues, and gray. Black took over in 1914 for one reason. Black paint dried fastest, and drying time was the last bottleneck on the line. Even his most famous joke was actually about time. Ford lived until 1947, long enough to see his method win the Second World War, for the Allies' bombers rolling off a Ford line at Willow Run at a rate of 1 per hour, and long enough to become the thing empires become: rigid. The man who had rebuilt how humanity makes things could not rebuild himself. His own executives smuggled improvements past him. His son Edsel died waiting to inherit real control. The flow that built the empire had hardened into stone around its founder. Put a year on the turning point, 1927. The Model T finally died after 15 million units, and Ford shut down the greatest industrial machine on Earth for about 6 months to retool for the Model A. Customers waited. Most came back, but Chevrolet had learned the loop, added annual models and colors and credit, and the lead Ford surrendered that year never truly returned. Empires built on one perfect answer die on the day the question changes. So strip the Ford empire down to its mechanics, the parts that still run everything from Toyota to Amazon. 1. Invent nothing, synthesize everything. Every ingredient he used was lying in plain sight. 2. Sell time. The real product of the moving line was the hours it deleted, and the price cuts were those hours handed to customers. 3. Wages are machinery. The $5 day was maintenance on the human parts of the system, and it paid for itself in months. 4. System that builds you will calcify. Around you flow becomes ritual, and yesterday's perfect answer becomes tomorrow's cage. He did not invent the car. He did not invent the assembly line. He invented something bigger, cheap, manufactured, deliberate, compounding cheapness, and it rebuilt the physical world. If you want to see how empires actually get built, mechanism by mechanism, subscribe. Because next time we trade steel for celluloid, a broke cartoonist whose first studio went bankrupt, whose first hit character was stolen out from under him, and who answered with a mouse that conquered the planet. Walt Disney, see you inside the empire.